Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show, y'all. You ever rebuild something after a storm and then realize that the foundation was cracked before the winds ever came? It's kind of like a person trying to change their life without addressing the underlying issues that caused them to do and act the way they had been acting before the change came, right? You're not really addressing anything. You're not really changing anything. You're just adding to the top of learning. And he was learning this the hard way. Black Crown had a new name on paper, but the street still knew it as Blood. That name was synonymous with the gang activities that used to go on that dominated the streets, and to some extent still do. You could dress up a wolf in a business casual suit, give it a pair of nice shoes, diamonds dripping around the neck, ears pierced, you know what I'm saying, with the studs and all this nice watch and all these different types of things, right? But if his hunger ain't changed, you just gave him a better aim to lock in and focus on the individuals that he might want to consider to be prey. See, because change is not easy. It's hard, it's a process. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of effort. But most people are not willing to put in the effort that it takes to get to that change. Now see, the call came in from Keely about 2 a.m. She was panicking, out of breath. She was telling Joe, she said, the training center was burning. It's on fire. And by the time Joe arrived, half the building was gone. Smoke was curling up and lifting up into the air downtown Memphis. You know what I'm saying? Just like it was the devil rising up over the building, right? And people were watching, and the fire trucks were on the way, and they were blocking the road, and the sirens were howling, and cameras flashing, and reporters were all over the place. Some of them out there smiling like this was just some other type of spectacle. This wasn't as serious as it appeared to be. It's just a fire, and we got to report on it. And Trayvon, he was standing by the curb, mad, angry, pissed off. He said, I told you, man. I told you should have moved on the ground. That's where we should have been. Joe didn't say nothing. He just stared at the blaze, getting all tight in the jaws and tense, and you could see it in his neck. He was angry because whoever did this, they didn't do it for the heat. They did it for a message. The next morning, Joe was out there. He was going through the records and all this and that, trying to find anything that he could salvage from the fire. And then the fire marshal walked over and handed him a photo of what they had found painted on the north wall before it had collapsed. And it was a picture of a crown. It was spray painted upside down, and it was on fire burning. And the initials beside it were GM. Joe didn't say a word. He just looked at him. And the marshal said, Big G, is that somebody you know? Joe took the photo, he folded it up, he said, not anymore. And he left without saying a word. Trey called up to him in the parking lot, said, we need to do something, man. We need to clap back, man. Joe shot off on him, looking at him real hard and menacing. He told me, he said, look here, bro. That's what they want. They want us to act like them, taking the bait. We can't do that. Trey looked at him and his voice dropped, and what if being them is the only way to survive? Joe didn't say a word, because somewhere deep down inside, he was starting to ask himself the same question. What is it going to take for these people to understand that I'm doing what's right and what's best for all of us, making this transition? What is it going to take to get people to wake up? Why is it so hard to get people to do right and so easy to get people to do wrong? What is going on? So Joe, he met with the bishop that afternoon in the back of the pew at the church. It's half lit, ain't nobody there. Now the bishop, you know, don't forget what I told you in the previous episode, he was an ex-rapper turned reverend. Didn't speak until everybody had left. Then he slid, you know what I'm saying, a folded envelope across the bench. Inside it was a death list. 9 names. All former OGs. All connected to Joe's new vision. All murdered within the last 3 weeks. Joe sitting there, you can imagine a situation like that and you just getting this type of information. His throat just went dry. Couldn't say a word. The bishop leaned forward and whispered to him, "Somebody making room, son. Clearing the board." Joe looked up at him. For the first time, he had that nervous look in his face, because he's responsible for these people. And when you're responsible for people, when something happens, it hurts. He said, "You think it's G?" The bishop nodded his head. It could be. Or it could be somebody wearing his face. So you got to remember that. See, a lot of people that might be sitting on the sideline waiting on something to happen, they'll try to take advantage of a situation when the opportunity presents. Joe folded up the paper and he said, "Man, what would you do?" The bishop lit a cigar right there in the church. And he told him, "I'd become someone new. Or I'd become someone they already scared of." Listen to me now. This the bishop talking to him. This is keeping it real in the streets. You got to understand it's a different level of a game out there. All of y'all talking about that life. But don't let me get off the point, right? Let me get back to the business. So Joe spent the next 48 hours tracking names, trying to see what would happen after, what was going on, what had happened to the people that he cared about. One was shot in the back of an alley behind the youth center. One was found overdosed. It was staged. Another was car bombed in broad daylight in front of everybody. All three, though, were registered as Black Crown mentors. Every one of them. Joe walking back and forth in the office, fingers twitching, blood boiling, ready to do something. But you gotta think, you gotta process this thing out. And Keely, she came and she said, "Look, we can do some PR, damage control. This is how they do it in the boardroom. Trade off with brass and bodies. Let's do something about this." And Miss Renee, she said, "Let's pray." But what Joe wanted, they wasn't giving him. And that was a name. He wanted a name, somebody he could target for this, somebody he could put his fingers on, somebody he could put his hands on. So he called in a favor. It was this old journalist who owed him from his college days back in the day, right? The man answered, drunk, you know what I'm saying, but he was willing. He said, "Someone is buying silence," he slurred. "That much I know." I said, "Who?" "Don't know. But you ain't just fighting gangsters anymore, Joe. You're stepping on the toes of people who print the money and the headlines." Joe hung up the phone, just trying to think and figure this out. Now his stomach started churning because he realized something that scared him to his core. This was no longer a street war. This was a corporate coup. See, let me explain something to you. You got to understand something. A lot of people talk about street money and street activities and all this and that, right? But at the end of the day, whether it's corporate money or street money, one thing is in that sentence that with both of them is money. And when you move in a certain way, people adapt and adjust their business model, whether it be corporate or not, to the way other people around them move. And when somebody comes in like what Joe is trying to do and shake everything up, it shifts the business model for everything and everybody, corporate or street. Corporate or street. And people don't like that. Especially people that are benefiting, listen to me, y'all. Especially people that are benefiting off of the foolishness of some people. See, some people out there are benefiting off it. I'm talking about corporate people benefit off the foolishness. You got to think about all the different things that come from the criminal lifestyle. You feel me? All the bling everybody wants. You understand what I'm saying? All of the products that can be endorsed from that slang gang type of mentality that people will go buy. You know, all the clothing that people will be wearing, they'll pay these rappers and pay these influential people to wear and all this and that, knowing that the target group is the street people and all this and that. See, all of those different types of things affect somebody in the boardroom. And if somebody's coming in and say, "We need to stop this, we need to change this up," there's people that benefit from that don't like that. And they want to stop you in your tracks. They don't want you to be able to get no traction to change up anything. You're talking about millions and sometimes billions of dollars. Billions. So we got a call about 3 a.m. in the morning. It was Tank. Breathing heavy. Slurring. You can barely understand what he's saying. He was crying. He said, Joe, man, I ain't know it go this far. I ain't know. Joe cut him off. He said, man, where you at? He said, I'm at the old boxing gym on Whitmore. You remember where it's at? Joe said, I got you. Hung up. He ain't had too much time to think. He pulled on his hoodie, tucked a pistol in his waistband, and rolled out, solo, all on his own. When he got there, you know how them gyms smell. You know, he walked in, it's got that smell of sweat, you know what I'm saying, and old memories and all this and that, right? Tank was there though, curled up in a corner, pistol in his lap, bottle of liquor right there too, right beside him. Joe was cautious, stepped up slowly. Tank sobbing, crying, don't know what to say. He said, man, they paid me. Roman's people paid me. They said you were done with this, man. That I'd get first chair if I just backed off. I ain't know about the fires, man, I swear. Joe squatted down beside him and said, where is Roman? I don't know, man. I don't know. Tank looked up and he got to thinking. He said, man, they said he's gone. He left Memphis. But his seeds, they still here. Joe leaned in. He said, tell me, whose hands is in now? Tank paused, looked at him, leaned forward. Ain't nobody there but them. But see, the fear of the situation was so overwhelming, he still whispered. He leaned forward, he said, whispered one name. Joe stood up, his eyes got wide as a smoker. Because that name was family. Big G's nephew, Marcus Gentry. The one who used to sell the nickel bags behind Franklin Market. The quiet one. The forgettable one. The invisible one, they call him. The one that nobody thought about. Turns out, he wasn't forgettable at all. He was Roman's inside man. He had been working two angles for years, man. For years. Planting doubt, feeding info, selling plans. All of these types of things go on in the streets, y'all. Yeah, everybody thinks they understand how this game really works. It gets deeper and deeper. The more you dig, the more dirt you find. So Joe, he sat up all night thinking about this, trying to figure what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. And he's sitting there staring at this old photo on his desk. It was him, Big G, Stacks, and Trey when they were kids. All of them, you know, back in the day, you know, got that gun tucked down in their jeans, looking all prideful, like they really about that, like they really own one. And they just stood standing there in the picture, and he's looking at it, and he remembered something that Big G had told him way back in the J. And he said out loud to himself, the ones who smile the most, watch them. They already planned your funeral. And he stood there and he said it again to himself. The ones who smile the most, watch them. They already planned your funeral. Joe called Trey, Keatley, and Miss Renee. Laid out the board. They got them on the table. He showed them the maps, connecting the dots. Then he made a decision. No more reaction. Nah. Now we move first. Trey asked the question out loud that he been wanting to say for the whole time. We going to war? Joe nodded. But not their kind of war. Not bullets, blueprints. We shut their funding, expose their fronts, take back what they think we don't deserve. Keely smiled at him because she thought that he was ready to go back to his old ways. She said, you finally thinking like a CEO. Joe shook his head. Nah, I'm thinking like a survivor. This thing done got real. Realer than I imagined. But I gotta move a certain way because even though we gotta get grimy with it, corporate grimy, The kids are watching. And if I go back to that, I'm setting the wrong example. I'm sending the wrong message. We got to fight back, but we got to fight back in a way that we set the tone and set the example for everybody that's watching. So that night, Joe went back to the fire ruins where the building had burned down all by itself. And he's there watching, looking around, just him and the smoke. And he stood where the Black Crown office once was. Now it's a burning heap of rubble. Nothing there. It's where hope lived for a second. Where kids got second chances. Then he saw it. Spray paint on the surviving wall. The one wall that was still standing up. It was the same crown. But this time, it was upright. And underneath it, somebody had spray painted, "Still Here." Joe stepped back, smiling. And he whispered to himself, "Yeah, still here. And I ain't finished yet." See, when you get ready to fight, right, you over here in a corner, planning, plotting, strategizing, right? But see, those seeds that you've already planted, they're starting to take root. So you got to be mindful of your next move because they're watching you. Now, these seeds that you planted that have taken root, they still believe. So even though the building had burned down and the ashes were all over the place, somebody went and they painted on the wall, "Still Here." And that told Joe that what he was doing was right. The sacrifices that he was making were right. And the decisions that he was about to go through with were right. See, the smoke, it wasn't just from the fire. It was from war signals, ghost plans, and listen to me, y'all, when I say this, legacy traps. See, we'll fall into those legacy traps because we get to thinking about, what's going on and how people are pushing back against us and trying to stop us, trying to interfere with what we got going on, even though what we're trying to do is for the betterment of everybody. They don't want to let go. So they'll bait you and do all of these different types of things to get you to respond in a negative way. Because why? They know if you respond in a negative way, bullet for bullet, that they've won. They've won. It don't matter if they die. See, their minds, their capacity to understand is limited, not yours. They can only see that that'll be the response that you make. They're not thinking that you're going to respond in another way. They can't even see it. If they can't see your vision, they can't see how you need to respond. They can only see how they would respond. Remember that. He ain't hiding. He ain't hiding no more. He's just getting smarter. He's just getting smarter. And the smarter he's getting, the more he's locking in. He knows that this is a reality. It's coming true. But he has to stay the course. And if you want to know how this thing plays out, look here, y'all. Y'all gonna have to tune in to the next episode. It's getting better and better. I know it is. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. And I say peace, y'all.